Okay, I'm finishing up another motor service. This one is a little newer than I usually play with. This is off a phonocone. It's one of those weird looking 1940s machines where the reproducer is also the horn. That'll be in another video when I show you the whole machine. But this is a typical general phonograph motor. Let's see, how did the lineage go? It started off as Otto Heinemann in the teens. And then it was General Phonograph. Then it was General Industries, I believe. It went through a lot of different name changes and a lot of different motor designs. And the motor's essentially the same as any spring-powered phonograph motor, all the same parts. Things change, though. Like this is aluminum now, the plate. They use these clips to hold the shaft for the spring in, the spring barrel rather in. And it's not fully lubricated yet. The spring's been out. That's been lubricated. And I did put some graphite powder on that fiber gear because it does show a little bit of wear, and I do not want solvents on that. So everything's clean now. It's functional. When it came to me, it was actually brought in because the gentleman had it. I'm working on another machine for him, but he asked me to look at this and find out why the motor didn't seem to be working. Its lubrication had gotten so old and sticky that it had glued the motor totally shut. I mean, every pivot was full of old grease and nasty stuff. So I had to pull it apart, clean everything up, get it back together with it will have new lubrication on it. It's got oil on it now. It's going to have grease on the gears later on when I finally install it in the machine. Although it's going to be out for a little while and I don't want it to make a mess everywhere. So I will grease it when I install it. But this is what one of these motors look like. This is typical of a 1940s, early 50s phonograph made in the United States. They use this type of motor. It's basic, it's simple, and it works. Maybe it's not quite as refined as what you would have in 1920 or 1925, but it's still a decent motor. It works well. Everything is okay. There's no pot metal in this. This is it is aluminum and steel and brass. So it's not going to start crumbling on you. It uses a felt in place of a leather, friction leather. It's got a felt friction on their pad. I don't know if you can really see it in there, but it's there. I'm not super thrilled about the fiber gear because they can let go and wear out and strip out with age and use, and I don't think anybody's reproducing them. But then it's not that hard to turn up one of these motors if you need that gear. They were used in a lot of very kind of basic sort of machines that generally when you get them today, they're in pretty bad shape. They're crumbling apart. The reproducers, which usually were pot metal, end up being in 500 pieces. So if you have to pull a motor out of one of those, like I think RCA used this motor, pretty sure. RCA didn't make any machines, of course. All they wanted from the Victor company was a record catalog and the name. Somebody else made machines for them, Waters Connolly and other successors to that company. So yeah, you can find parts. And the phonocone is actually you'll see when I do the video on it, probably next week or maybe during the week. It's a unique design, and not many of them survive today in decent condition because the materials used to make it were paper-based. I mean, it wasn't really, Gee, I'm wound. Almost done. See, it's starting to slow down a little bit. They were paper-based, and bugs, water, any kind of mistreatment over any period of time would destroy these machines. So, you'd have to be lucky to find one. This is a fairly nice one, definitely worth putting the effort in to service the motor and all of that. I did give him options, the owner some options. I could just spray it down with oil and leave it alone, or I could do the works to it, and he told me to go ahead. So pulled it apart. The spring was, it's a very tiny spring, probably the smallest of any phonograph motor. Seemed to have a little life to it, so we'll leave it alone, which is good because I really don't have one to replace it with. Although I'm sure you can get them. George Valima probably can make you one. But didn't seem to need that. So I took it out, cleaned it, greased it, put it back in. Well, put it back in, then greased it. I don't grease springs before they go back in the barrel. It's too dangerous to handle a slippery spring when you're trying to get into a barrel. You don't want it getting away from you. So there's nothing wrong with putting the grease into the barrel when you're done, and something like Lucas to smooth it out a little bit, and just work it, let it work in. Wind that spring 3-4 times, let it spin down, and the grease is distributed. Just as if you'd greased the spring and stuck it in there. There's a lot less mess and a lot less danger. And not that this spring is particularly powerful to get away from you, but it can. So you got to be careful. And you see the markings on there, made in USA. And that is a General, what did I say it was? General Industries Manufacturing, something like that. And you can see the modern style of this. This is, let's turn it over. You can see it there. This is the modern style. Getting paint chips all over the screws from the table. I guess it's time to paint it again. But it looks like the old style. All the same pieces are there. All the same shafts and gears and spring barrels and governors and governor bearings here on the end. It's all the same stuff you will find in pretty much any phonograph motor from this era or before, right back to the first ones. Just appearance differs and materials used. I'm sure if Victor could have used aluminum in certain aspects of manufacturing like this, they probably would have. It's more than strong enough for a phonograph motor, but the process to make aluminum was extremely expensive in the Victrola era, so that wasn't done. It was considered a semi-precious metal at that time. It wasn't used for things like making phonograph frames and things like that. But by, this is probably I'm going to guess post-war. I think they started making that machine in 41. Somewhere between 41 and 50, they made them. And, by then, aluminum was in common use for everything. Airplanes, car engines, whatever. Well, it looks pretty nice and clean now, and it's going to go back in the machine. Figured I'd get that done. I had a lot of other things going on today, but I did have time to take one small motor apart and scrub it. The other machine I have agreed to do for the gentleman is an HMV. I'm sorry, it's not an HMV 101. Not an HMV 101. It is an Electrola 101. Same exact thing, different name. That's all. Exact same company. They were all made, I'm led to believe, I'm told, and I read this, that they were actually all manufactured in England, in the UK, at the gramophone company facilities, and shipped out to Germany with the Electrola name on them and sold. But later on, Electrola made all kinds of phonographs. So apparently the 101 was not one of them, which I guess explains why it looks absolutely identical in every detail to the regularly marked one, except for that water decal. And right now I think I have 3 of them. I have Electrola of my own, not the customers. I have actually several Electrolas, several UK manufactured regular 101s, with the nipper dog on it. And I have, what's the other one? Oh yeah, the same thing, but for the French market. It's in French, that's all. So it's like 3 of them, 3 different same exact machine, 3 different water decals. Alrighty. There you go. There's your look at it. And no, it looks like it's clouding over. And my workday is done. Sometime during the week, I will reassemble that machine and see if I have not tried to play it yet because the motor was froze up before I pulled it out. So, but I'm told that initially it did play by the gentleman who owns it. He said it did play for him. So hopefully it will, because I don't have any parts to do any kind of work on whatever that uses for a reproducer. So hopefully everything works out there.